You know that feeling when life seems to go out of its way to test you? When every little mistake snowballs into an avalanche? Well, I'm Arthur. I'm 23, I was renting a tiny apartment that smelled permanently of instant noodles, and I was in my final year of college, studying advertising and marketing. I worked as a bike food delivery guy during the day, and as a cashier at McDonald's at night. That's when this story happened. And if you think that already sounds like a tragedy, just wait. I was in the middle of a delivery, swerving to avoid a double-parked car, when I lost control of my bike and I scraped the side of a black Mercedes. The sound of the metal grinding still echoes in my head today. The owner of the car? A guy in a designer suit, a gleaming watch, and a look that cut right through me as if I were invisible. He didn't yell. He didn't make a scene. He just pointed to his car door and said, $18,000 for the repaint. You have 1 week to sort this out. We can handle this formally if necessary. He asked for my ID, took a picture, and wished me luck. I just stood there, frozen, tense. 1 week. With what I was making, even if I worked 3 shifts a day for a whole month, I wouldn't be able to come up with that kind of cash. I called my only friend, Gabriel, and met him at a bar nearby. I needed to catch my breath. I sat down with him and told him what had just happened. He was already used to my weekly meltdowns, between cheap beers, while I tried to laugh at my own bad luck. I noticed a guy at the next table listening a little too closely. I went to the restroom. I needed to cool my head. And it was there, in front of the mirror, staring at my reflection and wondering how the hell I was going to get out of this, that the door opened. The same guy from the next table walked in. Handsome, well-dressed, a strong cologne. Maybe 35 or 40 years old. He had a presence. He looked at me and said calmly, "Sorry to intrude, but I can help you." He held out a card. Henry Valentine, Creative Consulting. Go there tomorrow 9 a.m. Ask for me. It's about a job that can take care of your debt. I just stood there, with the card in my hand, confused, tired, trying to figure out if it was a trap or a chance. But when you're drowning, even a dry stick looks like a lifesaver. I went back to the table with my heart pounding and a decision still far from being made. But one thing I already knew, after that scrape on the Mercedes, my life wouldn't be the same again. I got to the building for this agency even before 9 a.m. It was a huge glass-walled building in the city's financial district, the kind that reflects your insecurities more than your actual face. I walked in. Each step echoed, as if saying, "You don't belong here." Worn-out jeans, torn sneakers, and a shirt that had seen better days. I was the complete opposite of the environment. I went up to the right floor and was greeted by a receptionist with a practiced smile and a voice that was too sweet for a Tuesday. I gave her my name and said I needed to speak with Henry. "Mr. Valentine is expecting you, office 1408. Mr. Valentine. The formality gave me chills. The office door opened before I even knocked. "Come in, Arthur," he said, as if he'd known me for years. Henry looked like he'd stepped right out of a Netflix series. A tailored suit, a touch of gray at the temples, a look that analyzed even what I wasn't showing. "Have a seat. Make yourself comfortable," he said, gesturing to a leather armchair. "You seem on edge," he noted. "I guess it's because the last time I accepted an invitation from a stranger, it was for a barbecue, and I ended up doing the dishes all night," I replied, trying to sound witty. He laughed. And that's when I got it. This guy knew how to make anyone feel at ease. He opened his laptop. "Arthur, what I have to offer you doesn't involve anything illegal. Prive Agency works with very selective clients. Successful, discreet men who pay a lot for companionship. Yours." "Companionship?" I asked, trying to hide my shock. "Yes, dinners, trips, public appearances, good conversation. A charm that stands out from the crowd. And you have that." "This sounds like prostitution?" he cut in. "No, nothing physical is required. But of course, if it happens, and it often does, it's consensual. You're always in control." "And why me?" "Because you're young, smart, you're desperate, and you have no idea of the power you have in your eyes." I swallowed hard. "And how much does this pay?" Henry typed something on his laptop and turned the screen. $1,500 a night. No sex required. No binding contract, just presence. You have until tomorrow to decide, he said, closing the laptop with surgical precision. But the first client is already interested. If you agree, it's tonight. I picked up the card. The same one from the night before. The only difference was that now it was burning in my hand. This was too good to be true. Outside, the cold wind cut through my skin, but the only thing I felt was the heat of my dilemma. Accept or decline? Well, when you owe more than you can count, even your morals start to lose their voice. At 7 p.m. sharp, there I was in front of the client's house. An old mansion with a neoclassical facade and a fountain that gushed water as if it were spitting money. I felt like a badly cast extra in a period movie. The rented suit Henry had sent over earlier was tight on my shoulders and itchy on my neck. But it was this, or facing a lawsuit. I was greeted by a man with a deep voice and impeccably slicked back hair. "Mr. Arthur, welcome," he said, guiding me to the living room. In the armchair, with a glass of wine in his hand, was Rodolfo Richardson. In his late 60s, a beige linen suit, an eagle-like gaze, and a smile that seemed to know everything before I even said a word. "So, you're Arthur. Please, have a seat." I sat down. My legs were shaky. My throat was dry. "Wine?" he offered. "Yes, thank you." We talked about small things. He spoke about art, classical music, and politics with the calmness of someone who had seen the world fall and rise more than once. I pretended to understand, nodding and using rehearsed phrases I remembered from some YouTube videos, until he got closer. "You have an interesting look, Arthur. It's like you're saying you don't belong here, but you really want to stay," he whispered, running his fingers along my chin. My spine froze. I didn't know what to do. "Don't worry. You don't have to do anything. Just relax." He sat next to me, placed his hands on my shoulders, massaged them slowly, and then his lips touched my neck. My body tensed up. It wasn't exactly fear. It was discomfort. It was the memory of what I had promised myself I would never do. But here I was. The scent of expensive cologne mixed with expensive wine, and my own shame. The night was long, and it ended in his bedroom. I got back home close to midnight with $1,500 in an envelope and my heart beating strangely. I showered for almost an hour, as if the water could wash away what had happened. But it didn't wash away. It only made me feel smaller, more fragile, more alone. On my phone, a message from Henry. "Client satisfied. New meeting tomorrow. Confirm by noon." I looked at the money. It was real. I had solved 8% of my problem in one night. But at what cost? I lay down. I looked at the ceiling. And I thought, just 11 more nights. After that, I'll go back to being me. If there's still a me to go back to. Unlike the first, the second night came with less weight on my shoulders, and more weight in my stomach. I knew I wouldn't be with Richardson again, but that didn't mean relief. It meant uncertainty. Henry sent me a new file. Name, address, and the only note. "Be yourself. This client likes good conversation and cheap wine." I was suspicious. I took a regular bus. No Uber, no facade. The address was a modest building, downtown, a neighborhood with real people. I buzzed the intercom. A voice answered, "Come on up, Arthur. It's 5:03. I went up, suspicious, my heart beating at a less rigid pace than the night before. The door opened before I even knocked. There he was. Jonah. A white t-shirt, jeans, barefoot. In his early 40s, a calm smile. A well-preserved older guy, short black hair, an okay body, not too muscular but not overweight either. "Come in." I ordered pizza. "I hope you like pepperoni," he said, pointing to the living room table. "Pepperoni? Pizza? Seriously?" "That's not exactly what I imagined," I confessed. "That's what's good about it," he said, closing the door. "You can sit down. Tonight you don't have to act." The sentence hit me differently. I sat down slowly, taking off the jacket I myself thought was over the top. He poured 2 glasses of cheap wine, turned on the TV, and put on some random comedy movie. And that was it. Just pizza. Just wine. Just easy laughs and light conversation. "How did you end up in this?" he asked after the second glass. I took a deep breath. I was already in a bad place anyway. I wasn't going to lie. "A possible lawsuit because of an $18,000 debt and no realistic way out," I replied. "I get it. I've been in a place like that too," he said, with no drama, no pity. "Seriously?" I asked. "Seriously. I lost my job, almost lost my apartment. Someone helped me. Now, I try to do the same." The silence that followed was one of respect, of connection, the kind that doesn't need promises or explanations. When I was leaving, he handed me an envelope. "It's all here. But if you want to come back, just as a friend, okay?" "A friend?" I repeated, surprised. "Yeah, it was a good night, and it's been a while since I've laughed like that." I walked down the 5 flights of stairs with a light feeling in my chest. I got home with the envelope in my hand and a smile that didn't come from my wallet. For the first time, I didn't feel like I had sold myself. For the first time, I felt seen. On my phone, Henry sent a message. "Client satisfied, but he said the service was too emotional. Try to be more professional next time." I didn't reply. After all, who said I wanted to maintain that kind of professionalism? And before I went to sleep, I looked at my phone and there was a message from Jonah. "If you want to do this again, no fee, just company." I replied with a smiling emoji. Maybe the beginning of my way out. Wasn't where I expected. The following days passed as usual. Classes, delivering food, not enough sleep, accumulated exhaustion, and the invisible weight of not being able to tell anyone what I was going through. Henry sent me new options, other clients, more experienced, as he called them. But I didn't reply. No confirmation, and then, a notification. "Jonah. Sunday. Dinner. Just me, you, lasagna, and some bad wine. You in?" I replied in less than 2 minutes. "Only if there's dessert." "I'm the dessert," he replied. I laughed. The first silly, out-of-context laugh that didn't feel like part of a deal. I got to his place with a bottle of wine that cost $21 and an improvised bakery dessert. Jonah greeted me with a long hug. Not physical, just warm, comforting. He was in jeans and a t-shirt again, and I, more relaxed than ever, was just in an old sweatshirt with a light sole. We ate in the living room, sitting on the floor, with the plates on our laps and an old jazz playlist in the background. He told me about his adolescence, about the first time he fell in love with a teacher, and how he never had the courage to tell anyone. I told him about college, the scholarship I almost lost, the time I slept in the lab because I didn't have money for the bus. "Funny how life comes full circle, isn't it?" he commented. "Sometimes it's in the worst moments that we find a light." We were silent for a while. The lasagna was getting cold on our plates. The wine was already gone. "Have you been sleeping well?" he asked. "When I don't dream about the Mercedes, yes." We laughed. But his look turned serious again. "Are you still working with Henry?" I looked away. "I don't know. Maybe. I still need the money." He nodded like someone who understands without agreeing. "What if I wanted you to stop doing that?" I looked at him surprised. "Jonah, you don't need to save me. It's not about saving. It's about wanting to keep seeing you smile, and knowing that this smile isn't bought or shared with anyone else." I paused. My heart was pounding. "What if I don't know how to smile without feeling like a burden in other people's lives?" I asked. He reached out, touched my face lightly, and said, "Then let me show you what it's like to smile being just loved." And it was there, in the middle of a messy living room, between dirty plates and a vintage tune playing in the background, that he kissed me for the first time. A kiss without haste, without demands. A kiss from people who no longer need to pretend. Our mouths met slowly, as if time had slowed down just for us. His hand slid down the back of my neck, pulling me gently, as our bodies drew closer until there was no space left between us. The heat was different. It wasn't the kind that burns with impulse. It was the kind that consumes from within. A desire built with every word spoken in the late nights, with every comfortable silence, with every lingering look. My fingers traced a path from his chest to his waist, and I felt his body respond, vibrating under my touch. We moved as if we knew exactly where the other wanted to be touched. We lay down on the couch, him on top of me, his eyes on mine. Not like someone dominating, but like someone asking for permission with their whole soul. I nodded with a whispered smile between my lips. It was time to stop running. Our clothes came off slowly, like unwrapping a rare gift. His t-shirt slid off his shoulders and fell to the floor. My fingers mapped every line of his abdomen, and his shaky breathing was the confirmation that this was as intense for him as it was for me. His touch was warm, firm, and full of care. His kisses went down my neck, marking a path, awakening every part of my body that had been dormant for so long. We moved in silence, as if our skin understood each other better than any words could. His hands held my hips tightly, and the world seemed to disappear. All that was left was the scent of his skin, the sound of our breathing, and the heat of the moment. When we finally gave ourselves to each other completely, it was more than pleasure. It was liberation. It was as if I was rescuing myself with every touch, rebuilding myself in his body. And that's how I slept with him for the first time. And for the first time, not as a companion. He held me tight, as if the whole world wanted to rip me away. But he didn't let it. And for the first time, I didn't want to leave either. The next morning, I woke up to the smell of coffee filling the room. The light streamed through the linen curtain and drew golden lines on the crumpled sheet. Jonah wasn't next to me anymore, but the pillow still held the warmth of his body. I got up slowly, putting on the first t-shirt I found on the floor, and went to the kitchen. There he was, in a sweatshirt, barefoot, humming a quiet old song while he stirred the frying pan. "Sleepyhead," he said without looking at me. "I almost lost faith that you'd wake up today. With a bed that feels like a hug? No way was I getting up easily." He laughed and flipped the omelet. He poured me a strong coffee, just the way I liked it. The table was set, simple, but with a kindness I had never experienced before. It was the first time I had breakfast with a man after that. After sharing more than just a body, I shared fear, history, silence. "I need to talk to Henry today. I just don't know how I'm going to get the rest of the money," I commented, looking at my cup. "It doesn't make sense to continue with that anymore." "It hasn't made sense for a while," Jonah replied calmly. After coffee, he dropped me off at my apartment door with a kiss on the cheek and "It's all going to work out." And it did. I called Henry. He answered with his usual nonchalant tone, as if he'd been expecting my call. "So, you're going to leave me hanging?" he said. "This isn't for me anymore. It never really was. I was desperate, and I did something crazy." "Well, that kind of life isn't for amateurs," he said. "Yeah, that's why I'm getting out." I hung up and felt a relief that was too big for my chest. As if I had closed a heavy door that I never wanted to open again. That night, I went back to Jonah's place, feeling lighter. And he welcomed me with a long hug, the kind that says I'm here without needing to say anything. The following week, my routine started to find a new rhythm. No agency, no messages from Henry popping up on my phone, no burden of feeling like a walking window display. I was just Arthur again, still tired, still broken into many pieces, but for the first time in months, free. Jonah stayed by my side. No rush, no demands. He was the type of person who made silence feel like conversation. He let me breathe, but he was always nearby, and every gesture of his, no matter how small, seemed to say, "You don't have to run on your own anymore." On Wednesday, while I was organizing my overdue bills, a notification popped up in my email. It was from the Mercedes repair shop. "Payment confirmed. Case closed." I froze, my eyes blinking fast, trying to understand. I confirmed the sender, clicked on the details. Amount paid, $18,000. Payment made by bank transfer. I didn't get it. I hadn't done this. No one knew. much less had access to the repair shop or the driver. I just stood there, my heart pounding, trying to add up the possibilities. I thought of 1,000 theories, from some administrative error to a fundraiser I never asked for. But deep down, way down, my gut pointed in only one direction. Jonah. I went to his place that night. I walked in without knocking. He had already given me a key days before, saying, "A home that welcomes you doesn't close its door." He was in the kitchen, washing dishes and humming a song by Frank Sinatra and Maria Gaddu. "Jonah," I called, my voice dry. He turned around slowly, his usual calm look. "Hey, sleepyhead. Is everything okay? Did you pay my debt? With what money?" I blurted out, straight to the point. No fluff, no beating around the bush. He was silent for a few seconds. He finished rinsing the plate, dried his hands, leaned against the counter. And only then did he answer. "I'm not rich, Arthur, but my finances are pretty balanced, and this wasn't about the money. It was about giving you back the right to breathe without feeling guilty about it." "But why didn't you tell me?" "Because I didn't want you to confuse freedom with gratitude. I wanted you to choose to stay, and not feel trapped by any debt." My eyes welled up, not with shame, but with a new kind of emotion that I didn't yet know how to name. "I don't even know what to say." He came closer, touched his forehead to mine, and whispered, "Then just stay. Stay here. Stay light. Stay for yourself and stay for me." And I stayed. Not because of debt, not out of pity, but because, for the first time, I understood what unconditional love was. Time passed, and my life began to reorganize itself. With the debt paid, and peace within me, I was able to dedicate myself to college like never before. Jonah respected my time. He encouraged me, but never pushed. He always said he wanted me to be okay more than anything else. One night, it was raining outside, and I was studying on the living room rug while he read a book leaning against the armchair. I got up, sat on the arm of the chair, and rested my head on his shoulder. "Can I stay here a little longer?" I asked. "You can," he replied. "You can stay forever if you want to." And I wanted to. Not because of the comfort, the bed, the coffee the next morning, but because there, with him, I felt whole. I felt seen. It didn't take long for me to make the move official. Jonah set up a little study nook for me in the guest room, a desk, a bookshelf, even a lamp in my favorite color. I spent a good amount of time there. But at night, I would go to Jonah's bed, sharing dreams, fears, and plans. There, in that makeshift home, a new version of me began to emerge. An Arthur who no longer needed to chase the world, because for the first time, someone was running by my side. 3 months. It had already been 3 months since the day I left behind everything that weighed me down. The debt, the guilt, the obligation to smile when all I wanted was to disappear. 3 months since Jonah opened the door, to his house, to his life, and let me in, asking for nothing but truth. Our routine was simple. We would wake up to his alarm clock ringing softly. Jonah was the type who didn't need alarms to get up. And I would stay there, wrapped in the sheets, just watching. Seeing him get out of bed, rub his eyes, run his fingers through his hair, was always my favorite kind of morning show. He would make coffee, I would wash the dishes. He would read the newspaper headlines out loud, indignant about politics. I would respond with grunts and lame jokes. And so, life went on. College became an extension of my tranquility. I was performing well, focused. My professors started to notice. One of them called me after class to say that I had matured. I just smiled. I didn't say that the reason for this maturity had brown eyes, a close-cut beard, and a hug that was almost a home. One night, while I was finishing an article, Jonah came into the room with 2 glasses of wine. He sat on the bed and watched me in silence. "Did you know that when I met you I thought you wouldn't last even a week here?" he said, laughing. "Then why did you let me stay?" "Because, even without knowing it, I already wanted you to stay." I got up, sat next to him, and rested my head on his broad shoulder. "Jonah, you gave me everything I never knew I needed." He slowly turned his face, touched his forehead to mine, and whispered, You made me remember what it's like to feel. And I never want to forget. That night didn't have fireworks. It had synchronized breathing, intertwined hands, and comfortable silence. But the world outside, as always, was waiting for the right moment to test our peace. Graduation came in the blink of an eye. The auditorium was packed, the professors all in robes, classmates crying, proud parents. But among everyone, my eyes only searched for one person. Jonah. He was there, in the third row, a navy blue dress shirt, his eyes full of pride, and that small smile he always made when he tried to hide how emotional he was. When they announced my name, his applause was the loudest. I got up with my heart pounding in my chest. I crossed the stage, received my diploma, took the photo, and inside, all I could think about was how everything had changed. A year ago, I was delivering food and crying in the bathroom because I didn't know if I would be able to pay my rent and my bills the next month. Now, I was here, a graduate, standing tall, whole. The following week, Jonah surprised me. He had scheduled an interview at a small publishing house that published independent books, academic texts, and collections of short stories. It was the kind of place where I had always dreamed of starting. I was nervous. I thought about giving up. But he held my hands and said, "You've made it this far. Now all you have to do is take the next step." And I went. I went with fear, but I went. The interview went well, and a few days later, I got the call. Hired. My first day was simple but unforgettable. An ID badge with my name on it, a small desk, a shelf with books I had already read in PDFs during nights of desperation. When I came home that day, Jonah was waiting for me with wine and lasagna, our old ritual. We toasted to the new phase. And to our new routine. Rushed mornings, intense afternoons, calm nights, and full of promises. A month later, on a random night, sitting on the balcony with a blanket over our feet and a mug of tea in our hands, he said, "I was thinking. I know you're doing well at your job, but I need to give the construction company a new look. I want you with me there. I want you to be my partner." "Partner?" I asked, surprised. "Yes, not out of charity, but because I know how good you are at what you do and how smart, creative, and how you see the world with eyes I don't have. I want us to build more than a house together. I want to build a future. By your side." I looked at him. This man who was once just a kind stranger was now my home, my chance, my love. I took a deep breath, put my mug on the floor and said, "Yes, but only if we continue to wake up together every day." He laughed and pulled me close. "That's already a clause in the contract." In that moment, lying on his lap, under the starry sky, and with the certainty that I was loved not for what I could offer, but for who I was, I knew. The worst was over. Now it was time to live. Time passed. Jonah and I were no longer a novelty, neither to ourselves nor to others. I managed to balance my work at the publishing house and the company's rebranding, and with his help, I was able to release my first book of chronicles. Small, simple, but true. He, on the other hand, expanded the construction company. He started hiring young people from where I came from. He said he wanted to spread opportunities like they spread promises in a campaign. And he delivered. On weekends, we became regulars at a downtown coffee shop. We always sat at the same table, him with his bitter coffee and me with a latte, discovering what was good, and we laughed about our first meetings. Sometimes he would still say, "I'll never get over us meeting in the middle of a transaction that seemed like anything but promising." "And I'll never forget the day I met you and thought you were just another client," I would reply, laughing. But it was on a warm autumn afternoon that the biggest gesture happened. Jonah came home with an envelope in his hand. He handed it to me without saying a word. Inside, a document. He had transferred half of the house into my name. "You changed my life," he said. "I just want you to know that this house is yours too. Not because we're together, but because it was never a home until you arrived." My eyes welled up. I kissed his forehead and whispered, "You were the first person to see me, and you still stayed." "And I'm going to keep staying," he replied. A few weeks later, we left the registry office holding hands. We didn't have a party, we didn't invite anyone. It was just us, a signed paper, and the silence of people who know that the strongest love is the one that doesn't need to show off. Today, looking back, I see everything clearly. The bike, the scratch on the car, the unaffordable debt, the shame, the strange proposal in the restroom, the first night with a taste of guilt, and then his smile, the acceptance, the home, the hug, the love. It was as if life had pushed me to the limit so that I could understand that sometimes the greatest gifts come wrapped in pain, and that it doesn't matter where we start. What matters is where, and with whom, we choose to finish. Jonah taught me that, and every time he looks at me while reading my texts before bed, I'm sure this is where I was meant to be. If you've made it this far, thank you. Truly. This story isn't just mine. It's for everyone who has ever felt lost, judged, or afraid of never being truly loved. If you've ever experienced something similar, or still dream of that kind of love, comment down below. Tell me. Let's build this space of courage together. And if this story touched your heart in any way, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon. There's a lot more coming. Because sometimes, all we need is someone who sees our truth and stays.